Is Kurt coming?
I'm not sure. This is it for now. I'd like to open this meeting, the December 3rd meeting with the Waterboro Planning Board. If anyone has a cell phone, could they please turn it off or silence it? We've had that request. And looking at the agenda, I'd like to make one small change to the agenda if we can, and that's on the Dollar General site plan approval. I'd like to expand that a little bit because we have a traffic movement video that we could see and just acknowledge some information that's been received. That's okay with everyone. Our first appointment tonight is Rebecca and Richard Doucette, and you don't have to get up if you don't want to, Mr. Doucette. Last time they were in, we asked them to separate their house and garage and bring in a clean plan that I think they've been in, what, 4 times?
Yes, it's my fourth time.
Yeah.
Getting your money's worth.
So the new plan shows their garage outside the 100-foot setback. The house is pretty much where it was. So to approve it, we need to allow 35 feet from the water, 35 feet from the abutter on the left looking at the plan, and then 20 feet for the garage on the side setback. Am I missing anything?
Is the deck open? It doesn't have a roof on it, does it?
Yes, it has a roof
Which way was,
on it.
you know,
Should be
the,
a picture you have.
okay, the 35 feet has to be from the drip line.
Right.
Okay,
Should be a-
just check.
I mean, Mr. Doucette's been here quite a few times. We finally have it where we want to see it. As per our previous discussions with him. I believe the building had an issue at one time. There was more than a 30% expansion, but now this is within the 30% expansion. Understand that? The last letter we have from the code enforcement office, so was saying that it was in compliance.
Part of that remedy was segregating the garage from the
Right.
primary structure.
Right.
And then brought it back into the 30% compliance.
It has been determined that if it was a tear down, it should be replaced within 180 days. So we've gone past that hurdle. He's center of the lot. He's backed off the water to the distance he was before,
Right.
at least the distance he was before. We typically make these motions subject to the plan, but there's been so many plans drawn, I'm not really sure how we can segregate this plan from other plans that were drawn before.
You can put a date on it, recommend it based on the plan submitted for the December 3rd planning board meeting.
Okay, you can track that
Yeah.
accurately in the records.
Yeah.
So are we doing this in 2 or in 1 application? I believe it came to us in 1 application.
Just
2
one.
separate, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know we had talked about at one point in time doing the garage separate from the house,
Right.
but we've chosen not to.
But the
What I've read in the application, we've chosen not
Supposed to
to.
get rewritten, it's been rewritten for
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
buildings.
And it's 100 feet, the garage is 100 feet from the water. So I would make a motion to approve the plan based on the drawings submitted with at least the minimum setbacks as shown on the plan, as drawn on, it says here November 1st, 2014, and submitted to the board on December 3rd, 2014.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? Nope. All in favor? Thank you, folks, for your patience.
Thank you.
Our next appointment is Peter and Patricia Schild. They came in August 6th. At the time, they were going to raise their camp and put a foundation underneath it. And once they got underneath and started looking at it, it was pretty much beyond salvaging. So they reworked their plans to demolish that camp, rebuild their new camp, which is actually going to, in the same footprint, actually going to be a smaller footprint than the original camp. As you can see, except for one small jog, it's within the footprint of the original camp.
Yeah, it was a little bit hard. I looked at it on the internet, on my packet, but I
It
didn't
wasn't
have the color.
color-coded.
Didn't have the color, so it's hard to see until I get down here in front of the cipher what it was exactly.
I believe the copy you have in your hand is.
It is color in here, so it explains some of the questions that I have.
And you've benchmarked the square footage on your existing cottage, and the new cottage will actually be less square footage?
Yeah. The old structure is 1404, and the new would be 1322 square feet. Everything, deck and house included. And it's also moved back as far as we could. It actually moved back a few feet from the water.
Okay.
And we did do a sidewalk, August 20th.
Yep. We've done this one already. Just changing it from
Yes,
repair
from
to
grazing to a complete demo.
complete that demo. And
Now, when he was approved back in August, he did make note that they weren't sure as to what they were going to find once
Yeah.
they were able to
Yeah.
take and get under the camp. So the planning board did have heads up that it may come back.
Yeah. So we're basically just approving the same thing we approved last time, only it's,
To demolish
Slightly-
and rebuild.
Slightly different footprint. Any problems, any issues? I'll make a motion to approve. I'd second that. Any discussion? All in favor?
yep, discussion.
Mr. Chair, for those of you who don't know, my name is Glenn Trett, I'm your new CEO. The only thing I don't see in this package is a elevation certificate for floodplain. That will be required.
I think up to now, we've been leaving it up to code enforcement to make that determination about the 3 feet, not lifting it more than 3
Yep.
feet. And so I think our approval here, my understanding is our approval here is to see if it met the setbacks. We're granting setbacks.
Okay.
And I think the code enforcement officer typically has the power to make sure that the square footage isn't more than 30%,
Okay.
that the elevation, floodplain, and all that stuff falls into that department.
Now that you've made that applicant aware of that, I just want to make sure that he is aware.
Right, and normally we stress that
Because
too.
he can't get a permit from you unless
Right.
he has that. So you're gonna be the ruling, I believe you're gonna be the ruling, or in the past, code enforcement has been the ruling party in that.
Right.
So what Mr. Shred's saying is you can't raise a foundation more than 3 feet.
And you have to be above the floodplain.
Okay.
And that's for anybody doing anything down there, it's not, it's the
Right.
whole lake. So that goes with anything that we've approved anywhere. And typically that goes when you go to take out the building permit. If the code enforcement officer, even though you got an approval from us, if the code enforcement officer finds that you're in violation of any building code or any ordinance or anything else with state statute, he can say, well, you may have your approval to do it, but you can't meet it because of this.
But normally we say that in the motion, though, and I'd like to amend my.
We should have some
To say-
standard language that we use.
Yeah. So I'd amend my motion to say that it cannot be raised more than 3 feet. Did you second it?
I'll second that.
Second.
Should we withdraw it? Should we withdraw the first motion?
Withdraw the first motion and amend it to add
Frank
3
has to
feet.
withdraw his. Okay. you withdrawn them both.
So the motion is to approve the application with the foundation to be less than 3 feet or less.
Mhm.
And you seconded that?
I'll second that.
Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, who seconded it? Who seconded?
I think Frank did.
Frank did? Okay, thank you.
So before we go to our next appointment, there was something I wanted to say that on this application, a couple times in the past meetings, I've publicly criticized Doug and Matt for delaying this application, and that was, really inappropriate and unprofessional, and there was a lot more to that story than I realized at the time. So I would like to just as publicly apologize for, bad-mouthing them when they're not in the room to defend themselves. And I've also heard from people in the public pointing out other members doing the same thing, that, they think that it kind of hurts our credibility and it's a little unprofessional. And I thought what we should do is the same thing that we do with an application, that if the applicant's not in the room, we don't discuss the application. And, if the person involved is not in the room, we should wait until we get them in the room to talk to them directly.
We tried, in fairness, we tried to get an executive session with the selectmen, and we were told not to do that and go a different direction. And I think that different direction has just heightened some of the tension, because now it's accelerated to a whole new level. And I think we do need to have, and this is town business, we shouldn't have to do this at a planning board meeting, but I think planning board ought to have an executive session with the selectmen to straighten out procedures and policies and how things should work through the application process coming to the planning board. And we have attempted to try to do that.
Right, well, we'll follow up on that. Now, this is, for those people that don't know, the planning board approved the Dollar General application, and we found that we failed to hold a public hearing, which completely undermines the process. It would never survive an appeal to the ZBA. We also had information from the Department of Public Works and the Fire Department that somehow got lost in the process, and we're working on keeping that from happening again.
How did it get lost in the process?
Well, it's just emails and communication that people thought were sent that weren't received, and
Which, I guess, if that is the letter I have here is December 2nd, dated December 2nd. So it's not a copy of something that was made earlier, and then the other one was November 25th.
So they were after the meeting.
They were actually after the approval.
Right.
The letters were actually.
well, I think the idea was for them to, as part of a new system, was for them to put their comments in writing and submit them to us. So they probably will be dated after that approval.
Part of the reason that I want to have a meeting with selectmen is that there's some definite procedures that are in the site plan review. And one of them, and one of the reasons we're in such a mess, I believe, because with this whole Dollar General thing, is because procedures from the very beginning weren't followed through correctly. If you go through site plan review, and I can read it out for anybody that wants to read it out, when an applicant meets with the CEO, it says the CEO, the fire chief, and the town planner. Those are the three members involved. And when the applicant meets with them, at the time they meet with them, they have 5 days to submit in writing to the applicant, to the planning board, whether they have an issue with the project or they don't have an issue with the project. And we've had a hard time up to now being able to make, all we hear is secondhand information. We never got anything from the fire chief. Even when we had the meeting 2 Monday nights ago, we didn't have the information then. And we were asking Gary to get it, and we did get it for tonight's meeting, but it's once again, like I've said in the past, it's usually last minute. So nobody has time to really prepare for the meeting. When you only get the information the day before, an applicant has to submit it 2 weeks in advance, and we get it the day before the meeting.
I think we should have a meeting to talk
So we
about
should have a meeting to talk about it and
It just
straighten that
needs
out, and we won't be in this situation down the road.
because it's also
Everybody has to do what they have to do. The applicant has to submit the right information, and the town also has to process it correctly.
Gary, you want to say something?
Ma'am?
Of course.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the planning board. For the record, my name is Gary Lamb, the Waterboro Town Administrator, and I appreciate being on the agenda tonight. I thought to set the record straight, especially for people back home as well, and to kind of clear the information in place there where we're all on the same plane, just indulge me a little bit for a little bit of background. By mid-November of this year, staff, including the fire chief, public works director, and myself, learned of this November 5th Dollar General Site Plan approval. And I guess to start out my comments, I'd like to say I am here to formally request you reconsider your November 5th vote. And I'll go down some of the reasons why. Questions arose in-house as to why this was approved when the fire chief and public works director did not approve of the site design. I realize you folks didn't have that information, but we know that they didn't approve of that. In addition, the town planner recommended in a written memo to the planning board that the board should not approve the site plan in its present form. I believe that was delivered to you in perhaps one packet. On Monday, November 24th, I convened a meeting of Planning Board Chair Tim Neal, Public Works Director, Fire Chief, Board of Selectmen Chairman Dave Woodson, Town Planner, and myself. This was to clear the air and try and understand why this approval happened and prevent it from happening in the future. Again, I came out of there with 5 things that I've written down to talk about tonight, and I think Tim and others might have some others. This is not an exclusive list. Those 5 things are, number 1, the planning board is not getting the information they need to make fully informed decisions. Number 2, staff must and will change how staff review comments are captured in writing and forwarded to the planning board in a timely fashion. Number 3, staff is going to do a better job of getting department heads to the planning board meetings when their presence is needed by the planning board. We need to communicate better with the board. Simple fix. Number 4, the Dollar General site plan did not have a mandatory public hearing as required by our site plan review ordinance. And number 5, the fire chief, the public works director, and the town planner had met with the applicant many weeks prior and discussed how to change and improve the traffic flow for emergency and commercial vehicles. They were not trying to stall this application or prevent Dollar General from building here in Waterboro. The day after that meeting, on November 25th, I called Travis Letelier, who's with us here tonight, and one of his colleagues, and informed him the town was going to ask the planning board to reconsider this November 5th approval. I also told him I was prepared to appeal to the ZBA and the Superior Court in the event that reconsideration was not approved. I told him why I was going to do this for the reasons that have already been outlined and what you folks have been informed by Tim and some of my emails. I recommend you approve this reconsideration to remedy this legal exposure of no public hearing, but we also have other things to fix as well. You can then conduct that public hearing, get up to date with staff concerns, discuss those with the applicants in future meetings, suggest site plan amendments if you want, that's up to you, and then you vote to approve or deny the applicant's site plan. Concerning peer review, I think you're aware that there's been some recent activity there. We use Sebago Technics a lot for peer review and a variety of engineering work here in town. They're not the only firm, but they're one that we do a lot of work with. On Monday, town planner, myself, and others went to Sebago Technics to have their traffic engineer do a quick peer review of the turning movements. We have the results of that, and you've seen some of them at your home email, I think, and it does show a potentially dangerous situation that could be improved by possibly changing the site plan. Now, it's up to you folks to absorb that information. First of all, get it, and we'll do a better job with that. We're on the way to fixing that. And to absorb that information, they'll peer review comments and decide on the next course of action. Now, we're all well aware that Northeast Civil Solutions and their client may not want to amend the site plan, and that's their choice. Because they did not implement these suggested changes that came from the fire chief and the public works director when they were discussed earlier this fall, and that's their right. They can submit their plan to you in whatever form they feel. I'm also aware that the planning board can vote to deny an application if there are serious public safety issues that exist, in hopes that either the applicant can amend before or after that denial, if they know a denial is coming, for an amended site plan that's acceptable to all. I talked with Natalie quite a bit before tonight on what can and should be done here. According to her, this motion to consider should be made within the 30-day window of that approval. We're still within that 30-day window, and it must be made by someone who voted for the application on November 5th. I believe that was a 6-0 vote. I don't know who the person that wasn't here, so if you decide to make this motion, it should be one of those 6 people. She also suggested, and this is a suggestion, not a legal absolute, if you vote to reconsider, she suggested a postponement of further discussion until a date certain, but applicant's here tonight, and if you want to expand on some of this information, I know she won't have any problem. And other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions. We have department heads here too, so I leave it up to you as to whether or not you want to have any questions for staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, the first step is, as Natalie says, is to vote to reopen the application. And I would make a motion that we vote to reopen the application.
And I would second that motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? 3 to 3.
I wasn't here that time, so.
Yeah, you weren't here.
So are you abstaining?
He wasn't a member.
I wasn't.
Okay.
Wasn't a member.
So it's 3 to 2 to reopen the application. All right, so that carries.
And I'm saying we're reopening it because of the public hearing,
That's the only
which opens
reason.
it to everything, but I mean, we cannot not have a public hearing.
Yep. That'd be
We
the
should
only
have a
reason.
public hearing.
Despite what Gary said, I don't jive with the other stuff. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of things that have been said. Procedure we raising for the planning board, we went with what we had provided for information for us. That's not our fault, that's the town's fault.
Okay.
And I'm not,
We're still in discussion on this motion, right?
yeah,
Okay.
hasn't been voted.
I guess what I would say is that it clearly says, I spent most of my Thanksgiving weekend reading all of these ordinances from page to page, including the legal perspective on planning boards. And there is definite language in the ordinance that says may or, will or shall, and what it means. When we come to public hearing for site plan review, planning board shall. It's not if we want to, if we don't, we shall. And we did fail by not having that public hearing. And I don't see how we could ever hold a position that the board has voted on if we just downright didn't have a public hearing. The public should be entitled to come in and express their opinions and their views, and we should have information from everybody concerned on it. And I don't have a problem with that. So for that reason, I seconded the motion that we should have the public hearing. As far as changing anything or saying that we are, there's a lot of what I'm seeing here from the submissions that I have serious questions with as to how it came about, as to whether as to whether or not it's in the ordinance. It's one thing to say, I want this, I want that, I want this, I want that, but we have to follow the ordinance. We're here to follow the ordinance. If the ordinance says it's required, then we have the option of waiving it if it thinks it's an undue hardship. So there's a lot of things in there that we have. So we as a board have to get all the information in, and once we get the information, we as a board have to decide, does it meet the ordinance or doesn't it meet the ordinance? So by reopening this whole thing, lands up for more discussion, more public hearing, a better transparency in government, I guess. And then we can settle this, and we can all walk away from the board saying we did what we thought was right, whether we agree with whoever or whether we don't. We have to follow the ordinance. It's not whether I want it there or I don't want it there. It's a matter of, does it meet the ordinance or doesn't? I know that we have the fire chief's letter. We have a letter from Doug, from the Public Works Director. There's issues about who has authority.
Plus, we'll have feedback from the public.
Exactly. And there's some things in here that I'm not sure if we even fall into our jurisdiction, like building exceeds 3,000 square feet. Thus, we need plans submitted to the state fire marshal. I'm not sure if that falls under our site review.
Yeah, I don't really want to get into that stuff tonight.
Enforcement to see that. I don't think that falls.
I think
under
that's for a later date. It's.
So
I
these
think-
are all things that have to be discussed. But I think at this point, where it's been presented to us, we should discuss it
And feedback from the
because we
public.
just can't ignore it.
I guess my only issue that I've got with that, Andy, is Aroma Joe's.
Yeah.
We followed the exact same procedure we did for Dollar
Yeah.
General. That didn't, they're under construction already. Section 3B says we shall have a public hearing, but the town of Waterboro's master checklist for our procedure never discusses public hearing. So
I didn't see the master checklist.
the master checklist never
I don't even
talks
have
about a
a
public hearing. So, I mean, I guess my question is, do we go tell Aroma Joe's they're going to put
No, they
the
passed
East
it.
Variety back up and we'll start all over again?
That's one of the fixes that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But
The
I mean,
checklist needs to mirror the ordinance.
You know,
I mean, that's-
we haven't been getting that. We haven't been getting the checklist lately because everybody's just so stretched. We don't have a full-time code until now, code enforcement officer. Tom's down to 2.5 days a week. Town hall's open 3.5 days a week. So I mean, it's pretty hard. Is it 4 days now? Oh, that's right, Tuesday, half a day Tuesday.
Before,
No, it's
Or
not a
odd
half a day,
hours.
it's a whole day.
before we vote on this, could I ask Glenn, do you have anything you want to add to this, or from your experience, or would you rather just stay out of it?
I can't stay out of it. I guess if I could be frank with you, and I'll stand up while I speak so people can see me.
Why don't you come over
And
here?
welcome to Waterboro.
job announcement and then on TV.
Not to cut you off, Gary, if you
No,
would.
that's fine.
I haven't read the town charter or the ordinance, but I'm very familiar with state laws, and I find it amazing that the planning board can approve variances. That is a zoning board of appeals.
Well, that's in the
That's
works.
another,
It's a separate issue, but it is in the works. We've submitted an
that's
ordinance,
floating
and
around
We've been
somewhere.
stonewalled on it for.
it's in the process.
Yeah, man, that's scary.
The town council said for us not to, and the town councilor said for us not to do it. And then,
But that's another story.
That's a whole nother story.
We've got to fill you up to speed on that. I mean,
Yeah,
what we just did with the other two applicants, total
So
joke.
one with Joe's was done without a public
The
hearing?
site plan,
Yeah.
yes.
But it did have a public hearing? or
No,
not?
it did
No,
No.
they're not.
Okay, that,
Yeah, and that's not right. It's not right.
No,
It
it's-
shouldn't.
it's
But we
illegal,
were under the
actually.
belief that it was a option. And when we got Aroma Joe's package, once again, we get Aroma Joe's, they come in. There's no representation from anybody from the town at all. There's no letter from anybody, there's nothing. All we're hearing is that he's got a complete package and it's set to go. And he's meeting the standards.
He did everything we asked him to do.
And so, whereas we don't have any information from anybody, what do we do? Just say, go away, because we don't have letters from this one, we don't have letters from that one? even though
Can we
it's
let
supposed
him
to
finish
produce it?
first, Matt, and I'll get back to you?
And in
Please.
fairness, we have applications here that have gone, we've had applicants that come in front of the board that have gone for months and months and months and have never, ever gotten a letter from the chief or Public Works or anybody else saying they're pro or no for the.
Wrong. That is not the case.
Let's just take it one at a time, please.
that's,
No, and this is why we should do this in executive session. I mean, this
I would
is,
agree.
yeah, we should do this in executive session.
I'm still
I
absorbing
disagree.
a lot, but those are two red flags that I can voice my opinion on right now.
Well, we're working on it, thank you. Matt, did you want to speak?
No.
Save it. All right, so we had a motion. Any more
Good motion,
discussion?
Second.
All right, all in favor of reopening Dollar General application? 3, all opposed? Oh, hold it, we have 5 to reopen. One abstention.
Did you pull back that previous vote? That was 3-2.
yes.
I thought we continued with discussion, but
Yeah, I
I
thought we
would-
was gonna do.
We need to be.
I would resubmit my motion, pull back the vote or whatever.
You withdraw.
I withdraw my original motion and original vote. I would resubmit a motion to reopen the Dollar General application.
And I would redraw my first, second, and reopen my second, or however I should be saying it.
Crazy.
Mr. Chairman, I would request that the secretary read those minutes.
Yeah,
back to the
yeah.
board.
You lost me.
The original motion made by Tim Neal was to reopen the Dollar General application. Judy Carroll seconded the motion. The vote was 3-2 with Frank Allen and Kurt with the no votes. After further discussion, it came back to resubmit. Tim Neal requested to resubmit his motion to reopen the Dollar General application. Andy Cody seconded the motion. There was no further discussion. I'm awaiting the vote.
Is that appropriate, Doug?
You're just gonna reopen it
And vote again.
and then vote again.
All right,
That seems to be appropriate.
all right. So, without further discussion, all in favor of reopening the Data General application?
As sad as it is.
Unanimous. So what we need to do tonight is schedule a public hearing. Our next meeting is on the 17th. And I thought we would see the peer review of the traffic movement. Was that the idea, to see the video? Doug, did you answer?
I believe once you reopen this, then you have to have another vote to rescind your approval. You reopened the case.
Yeah.
Now you have to hold another, before you do, I think that's a point of
Because you
law.
have an approval and you have,
You got to reverse your approval, then you can go on to talk about the public hearing. Right, wrong?
I asked that specific question because I thought it would come up. Thank you for raising it. But Natalie said you do not need to do
I
that
didn't think
because
so.
that reconsideration vote nullifies that previous.
it overlays the
Because
first
the
one.
board is now at that application just before the vote.
Right.
Good question.
We're back to where we failed to schedule a public hearing.
Back to
Wait.
right to the vote.
Mr. Chairman, on this is from Gary, Tammy, I guess, but paragraph 2, it says, if it passes, she suggests the board then vote to postpone further debate until date certain.
Right. I think that boat's already sailed, but we can do without any further debate.
That was a suggestion, Kurt. She didn't put that as ironclad as the other things she's supposed to.
Well, I think for one thing, the letters that we have from DPW and the fire department just came in today. I don't know if Travis has had a chance to see them. I think we should probably hear from the public and pretty much digest everything at one time. That's my feeling.
My thought is that we should leave it up to Travis as to what the applicant wants to do. If he wants to,
I agree.
or if everybody wants to proceed in some kind of presentation, if you have,
We don't have anything tonight, we would like to schedule a public hearing as soon as possible.
Right. And that would be our next meeting, the 17th. Do we have other things on the agenda for that night?
Right now you have one applicant coming in for a setback reduction. And I believe that's it. If Carpenter Estates doesn't come before you, they're in a hold right now.
All right, you didn't hear from them. So just out of courtesy, we could do the setback reduction and have the public hearing.
Yeah. Well,
So,
yeah,
is that
however
okay
you
with
want to set it.
everyone?
Probably have a public hearing before our regular meeting, right?
Right.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. Hold the public hearing.
Yeah, I had the public hearing first. Do we need to vote on that?
Mr. Chair, what are the requirements for notification before public? Aren't they 15 days?
No, they're
7, I
7
believe.
days
7 days? Okay.
prior to the meeting.
All right.
so we would have public hearing and then the meeting.
The meeting afterwards?
The meeting would be second because
Be after the appointment?
Should we try to go hash some of this stuff out tonight?
I don't think
No?
so.
Okay. Okay. Probably better when the public's here anyway.
it's one gathering point, same thing we did with the
No.
campground.
If we're going to have a public hearing, is this going to be back on the agenda on the 17th also? During the meeting?
After the public hearing.
Yeah. Well,
I would
this-
assume.
What's the appointment going to look like? Is it going to be a discussion? Is it going to be a vote?
yeah, I mean,
It's gonna be a long night, because we're gonna have to go through a whole finding of facts and go item by item all the way down to properly do it where it's just being,
So you want to put it off and not vote on it that night?
no, I think that we should proceed and give them either a yes or a no answer.
But it also doesn't give him time to make any changes. I mean, it's one thing to hold a public hearing, but what if someone says something that
At
requires
this
a
point,
change?
the applicant, I feel, has all the information, and he can decide.
Yeah.
I mean, we've given him the opportunity, he can address it tonight if he wants, but the applicant has his information, the applicant also has the information from the town. Now the applicant can go back and say, okay, do I want to amend my plan to be, and come in on that meeting, or does he want to postpone the meeting, or does he want to go with what he's submitted already? I think it's where we're at.
Gary?
Mr. Chairman, would that be a good night to have at least 2, if not more, department heads here with a good, and the applicant here, so you can have a good roundtable discussion about those issues? 2 weeks from tonight.
I think the more the better.
So would this be a planning board meeting?
Sure.
Okay, okay, if it's a planning board meeting, it's fine, with the applicants. Okay. I don't have a problem with that.
My only question is procedurally, if they come in with drawings, say that have changed or not changed, and we vote, at that meeting, based on what we hear from the public and the town departments, that would change those drawings,
Then we have to come back.
do we still have the ability to approve or deny with a resubmission of, pending a resubmission of the drawings type of
That's
thing?
why I'm thinking, it sounds like a lot in one night. I mean, I could see the public hearing and discussion, but then the changes are needed.
What do
It
we
sounds
do?
like you'd need another meeting after that.
Yes, I do it.
I'm sorry, Tom, you had your hand up before and I passed you by.
In terms of process, I suspect that there'll be a lot of input at the public hearing. It would be advantageous for the board and the town to take all that information, and if there are any plan modifications, the board really can't approve on the same evening if there's, as I agree with you, Kurt, if there's any changes to it, the board should see a final set of drawings. That would give the applicant, Travis, and if you agree, Travis, on behalf of the applicant, procedurally, does that make more sense to you?
That's fine with us. We can have the public hearing and discussion.
Because then you can
next
take
meeting.
back, as you have on other workloads here in the town, take those points back. If there are any modifications, then it would be appropriate for staff to look at those again and then submit a full package back to you. I think we've gone this far. We want to execute it as close to perfection as we possibly can.
Definitely.
So I would suggest in this case to receive all comments. That doesn't prevent, after you close that public hearing, to have a discussion amongst the planning board and then wait for plan revisions.
And department heads.
Yeah.
So is the public hearing going to contain discussion from the town, representative of
It's a
town?
public hearing. Staff can present, the public at large, people in that neighborhood. We haven't officially heard, in the absence of a public hearing, people from North Waterboro who live in that proximus. They may have some comments in favor or not.
Yeah.
And so that's your night to benefit from that public hearing.
I would suggest that if department heads are going to speak that night, it should be outside of the public hearing, because we would want to encourage a give and take with the board, and that's not what the public hearing is really for. That's for you to hear from them.
That's a good point.
So do we need to vote on any of that? Just schedule it?
Just reschedule.
Yeah. So that would be a public hearing on the 17th, setback reduction appointment, and then a general discussion on the Dollar General application.
And the general discussion would include town employees.
Yep.
And then, so that would be like, the next meeting then would be the 7th of January. The changes came through, that's the first time it could come back for,
That'd be the first earliest time.
okay.
If they're ready to come back. Don?
I'd like to suggest to the chair and to the board that the minutes reflect, and Travis, correct me if I'm wrong, that the applicant's representative finds these new date changes acceptable.
Yep, no objection.
As a matter of record.
All right. Anything else on that? Anybody want to speak on it? All right, case closed.
Excuse me, Chair. Mr. Chairman, what time will the public hearing be held, so I can get it into the paper tomorrow
If
morning?
it's 7 o'clock?
7 p.m.?
And I'm kind of on a side note, not to embarrass her, but the young lady sitting in the back, Katie Mann, has been coming into our meetings. She put in an application for the planning board, and she's more or less like in the batter's circles, and she's going to attend our meetings, and she's been talking with Tom. So for a change, we have someone that's actually like a member in training, because something should happen to one of us.
Everybody feeling okay?
So you can step right in. But thanks for coming in. We appreciate it.
Maybe change his mind.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Dwayne may change his mind about doing both jobs.
They have to. Who wants to?
Tom, did you have anything you wanted to talk about? Or?
Well, have we exhausted all of our conversation on this?
I think we have.
Okay.
If not, We could just adjourn.
Excuse me?
I said
Excuse
if no.
me, you still have minutes?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Rest of the agenda.
So when
I
I'm gonna see
think
the,
Gordon has something to say.
Gordon, would you like to speak?
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Of course.
I had not originally intended, to say anything, but I did want to commend you as the chair for bringing forth in your email the discrepancy regarding the failure to provide for a public hearing in this matter. What I was particularly pleased about is it wasn't a finger-pointing thing or anything negative. It was clearly to bring forth, that issue in a professional way. I know that you indicated by your remarks earlier that some comments that you made you felt were unprofessional and uncalled for, but I think that it also should reflect that you've taken measures in a professional way, to correct certain things. I think the absence of having a public hearing on that impugns the integrity of the planning board, of the town, and we really need to uphold the provisions of our ordinances, or our ordinances, in essence, have no effect. One of the things that I know that myself and the town manager have discussed is I've had the pleasure, I guess if you could call it that, of sitting on a site plan review when I was a member of the Sanford Police Department. And in that, they have the stakeholders around at a large table, and that includes the Public Works Director, it includes a representative from the Fire Department, a representative from the Police Department, and a member of the engineering firm that the town had. And why I think that that's particularly important is because whether or not it's intended, but there is a perception, I think, that the planning board relies on a lot of the credence of an engineering firm, and in this case, the applicant's engineering firm. Now, I think that what we need to remember is that just like an attorney, if you hire an attorney, he represents you. If they hire an engineer, that engineer represents them. It doesn't necessarily represent the best interests of the town. And I think what's important here is that the interests of the town be protected, and that we need to have our own engineering opinion on any applicant that appears before the board. And that's one of the things that I have recommended to the town administrator, is developing a comprehensive site plan review committee here. One of those purposes is to try to bridge this gap of the no communication, not miscommunication, there's no communication. You are clearly not getting the information that you need to make a well-informed professional decision. And that has been identified. What we need to do now is correct that so that you do get the information that you need. And I think one way of doing that is by having a site plan review committee that gathers all this material so that when it gets before you, you have it all in front of you. And you can make that decision, and we don't come away looking like we have to backtrack and encounter all these problems that basically are unnecessary. And make this a smooth running operation. I think it would speak better of the planning board and of the town, and it would look more favorably in the eyes of an applicant when they come in here and see that they're going to be treated in a professional way, and it's not just a hodgepodge of papers being thrown and finger pointing back and forth about who did what, and I didn't get this or we didn't get that. I just think it makes everybody, look particularly bad in that situation. So just to let you know that the discussions have been going on, that, it's not, a blind eye has not been turned to this. Now, as to Mr. Cody's suggestion that he has an executive session with the Board of Selectmen, I particularly would not be in agreement with that. One is I don't think matters of, a public ordinance are things that are discussed in an executive session. There are certain guidelines by which executive sessions must be entered into, and there are only certain things that we can and cannot discuss, within that. And I believe as I think Mr. Allen pointed out, or maybe it was Mr. Coda, that we should have that transparency in government. And if there are things that we can speak about openly, then I think we need to do so that the members of the public have that information, that we're not, doing things behind closed doors or in the secrecy of night or, in darkness, that, we're casting light on the things on the business of the town.
I think you'll find that's pretty much the motto of this board. I mean, we're pretty lucky because we all are of the same mind that as much as possible, we want it right out in the open. I'm sorry.
I think the only reason I wanted an executive session was to try to make sure, have everybody understand, and not in a big public scene, how it should all happen, because it's not happening that way,
But I think that those are procedural issues that we can iron out in an open setting, whether we need a workshop.
There's no way I can discuss this with you tonight here without saying the way it really is.
Yeah,
and so we're kind of stuck. We don't want to be airing our dirty laundry in the public, but yet everything has to be out in the open. But there's meetings that are being held that are not in the open.
So you're talking about
meetings. There are meetings that happen, staff meetings and meetings that are happening that actually planning board members aren't even allowed to attend.
So you're talking about personnel issues.
I'm talking about personnel issues.
Yeah.
As
There's
to
personnel
who does
issues,
what.
that's clearly
Who
something
does
that
what
should
when.
be discussed in
Yeah,
executive
that's
session.
not for public
But those
discussion.
need to be identified and forwarded to the town administrator and placed appropriately
And
on the agenda.
that was more my concern, is to discuss that. Because not making the ordinance. The ordinance is gonna end up being made by some people to come in front of planning board, we're gonna make amendments to it or whatever, and then it's gonna become policy. But there are procedural issues that are not being followed through, and we've been talking about it for a long time. I mean, we've been talking about it for 3 years that I've been on the board, and I'd like to see the procedures done. I think we're on that track right now, but it was a real hard way to get there. I mean, it was a real hard way to get everybody's attention that it needs to be changed. And another example is a 208. And I say 208 because I just know by the number, the zoning board setbacks. I mean, I got a charge tonight when you said we can't be doing that because we've already got our town attorney telling us we can't be doing that. We've had public hearings about that we can't do that. We've had discussion about that, and we've given to the selectmen that we wanted to, and that was like a month and a half ago, and we haven't got an answer on it. And it's been, I'm not going to go there where it's been, but it's just not happening. And to have another code enforcement officer come from another county saying, you shouldn't be doing that, we've known that. So, once again, we get that airing all this dirty laundry. That's why, it's like, what do you want us to do? We're doing things that we shouldn't be doing, and we're following procedures that aren't being followed correctly, and we're not allowed to talk about it, and we can't have a meeting with anybody to talk about it, and so we're kind of like stuck.
Well, I'd be more than happy to have a sit-down discussion with you one-on-one to find out just exactly what those concerns are so that I can bring them to the chair.
I think John wanted to speak first. Thank you, Gordon.
This probably doesn't have anything, that doesn't directly concern the planning board. But did anybody talk to the applicant when the applicant had, from what I understand, 2 possible locations in town, and sit down and talk with the applicant, because this may come up on the when you have your hearing. A group of people met with a 2020 committee within the past couple of years, and with the consultants set the parameters for a village zone in North Waterboro. If you look at the plans of that village zone and you look at the store plan for where it is, there can't be anything further apart. So those people are not going to be happy that even though this hasn't gone through vote, and it's not, but it is, I think you're going to find a concerned public here at the hearing that has that in mind. And it would be really nice if the applicant knew that maybe the East Waterboro location would be more in line with what the 2020 committee was looking at.
John?
I think the applicant is gone at this point, so we shouldn't be talking about it.
Anyway, that doesn't require any response. It's just to give you a heads up of maybe what maybe
A preview of what we'll be
The
hearing on
applicant
the
should be aware of
17th.
anything that's being discussed on this product, especially if, so it's kind of.
Tom?
I believe we can respond, at least I can, as a staff person, to John, Selectman John, as to the East Waterboro site selection. Let me just give a little historical context. I'll really compress this. And this is for everyone's benefit. Originally,
Excuse me, Chairman, could you please come up to the podium so that we have this adequately
On tape?
on
Yep.
tape.
good evening, my name is Tom Ersham. I'm the Waterboro Town Planner, and I'm addressing Selectman Gale's comment about that why not East Waterboro, because originally there was a proposal by Dollar General to build out on the currently approved by the Planning Board Patco storage site. That's the parcel of land that lies across from Jellison Road. The history of that is that both sites, both North Waterboro and East Waterboro, were optioned. The intent originally was to build a Dollar General on both sites. On both sites.
So we'd have three?
That's you'd have
We'd have
the other.
three, yeah.
You'd have three discount dollar stores. Again, East Waterboro, North Waterboro, both were sites that were narrowed down from a site selection of 10 different sites in town. When it came to final corporate approval, the site selection is done by a real estate division. That moves to corporate decision. When it got to the corporate level, the corporate division said, no, we want to abandon the East Waterboro site because it looks as though it may have some traffic issues. And we feel that they performed market studies on both locations, and much to the demise of some people, it turns out that North Waterboro had a stronger market, captured market area for a Dollar General. So what they opted to do was to pursue through the planning board just North Waterboro. However, just for clarity, the East Waterboro site still has not been released in terms of its P&S agreement. So that still exists there. But the North Waterboro site is the one that they wish to pursue because of their marketing studies. So that's where it currently stands. And it's just to give you a historical context. Any questions from the board or John?
Everybody?
Any questions, John?
No, I mean, the issue is,
Does that answer?
and I probably don't need to restate it, is that store is very much different than what the 2020 plan presented and got an initial okay, at least from the community, and is going to be in the plan for voting in the spring. And here you are going in the absolute opposite direction. So I think and I don't know how many people will show up, but the word will get around. And I don't know what they can do, but there's going to be, especially those people that put in the time working with the 2020 committee, they're not going to be happy.
So we'll hear more on the 17th. But getting back to what Gordon was saying, the one good thing that should come out of all of this is Gary and a group that met last Monday has already initiated a site plan review process that will be doing exactly what you're talking about. Everything's going to be documented. There'll be minutes taken. I didn't mean to look at Tammy. And, we will, when that package comes to us, we will have a written account of what everyone's opinion, every department, Doug, Matt, everyone, will come with that package. And there won't be any question about things being lost, misplaced, or emails that were sent that weren't received. So we've definitely started that process.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question for Selectman Gale's comment. I guess legally, how can we affect a decision on something that hasn't been approved by the town?
Yeah, I'm not talking legally. What I was talking about is before this even came about. excuse me, I wasn't talking legally here. I was talking about before this came about, and the applicant may have been looking at a couple of different places. And a little bit of background, sitting down with the applicant, a little bit of background and say, let me show you what is in the works to be voted on this spring. Let me show you the diagram of the place you're looking at. And the people that worked on this to put it together, you may be running into some major opposition here, and it's maybe not the way you want to start out your business. Down here, there's a possibility, and here's what the East Village looks like. So that is just talking with the applicant, so the applicant might say, okay, I'll go with the East rather than the North. But once it's in the breach, you got to deal with it.
Because I mean, we had talked about having like an appearance standard, and our consensus was it's a dead issue in this town. We'll never be able to get an appearance ordinance
To affect the appearance of the building.
because I mean, I think every one of us admit this is a shoebox and nothing better. But we don't have as a town, we don't have the ability to go back to the applicant and say, we don't allow a CMU block building, in town. But we don't, as a board, we don't see the momentum ever gaining out of here that we can come up with an appearance standard like the town planner gave us 2 excellent ones that other towns have, which would fit in ideally with the 2020, the little red villages that were on the board. It would fit in perfect with that, but we don't have the legal bridge to bring us from our ordinance to the 2020. We can't force the hand of an applicant to change the design, to make it fit in better with the village the way we're sitting here right today.
We need to steer clear, too, of talking any more about this application because it's not fair to the applicant, but we'll definitely be talking about it on the 17th. Any more on that? All right, as Tammy pointed out, we haven't done the minutes for November 19th.
I don't have a copy of them. I saw them on the computer, but I don't have a copy. I gotta make a change to them. If I could. It's November 5th. This is November 5th.
Oh,
I thought it was November.
we have 19th on the agenda.
Yeah,
but
we had 19th. This is November 5th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. That's why I couldn't, because I had November 5th too over here, and I didn't have it. Because I saw on there that I had to clarify something on my motion.
Maybe the wrong minutes.
Want to just
Yes.
postpone until next meeting? So we'll postpone the approval of November
Can
19th.
we make the change that I want to make in case something happens and I'm not here?
And that's for the
That
5th?
is for the Allen approval.
Yeah.
Yes.
The one with the Allen. I had made a motion that the garage slab in the new, it's not Allen, Allen was the abutter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of Martell. Martell's concrete slab was to be 6 inches below Allen's concrete slab. And the way the minutes are written is that Martell's slab was to be 6 inches lower than Allen's tar. And it really should be the 2 slabs. So one garage slab is going to be one cement slab, and I'm using the slab because the slab is level. So the garage slab in Martell's is going to be 6 inches below the slab in Allen's garage.
Was that before we amended them, or? Because I think I changed that, but I could be wrong.
Why are you pointing at me?
Garage slabs are pitched.
Well,
so where's the point taken
The
from?
lowest point
Okay.
in each one.
Good point.
A good point. That is a good point. The lowest point.
I didn't
in
even
each
think of
slab.
that until you said.
What's that?
I didn't think of that until you said that. And I was
No,
like,
it's true. I thought it was that way I was saying it, actually.
Tim, before I actually take and type it up, I'll make sure I meet with you.
Yep.
So that we can make sure everything's in the right verbiage.
So you're talking about the top of the finished slab on the Martells will be 6 inches below the top of the finished slab on the Allen.
That's what I thought I made for a motion. And I
Okay,
did
I'll
talk
go back
about
and
tar.
double
I
check
think
that.
that's what you did. It was
I
just,
did talk
Yeah.
about tar. I know it's hard to understand sometimes on the tape.
that's why we look at them.
Yeah.
and it's important.
Yep, okay.
And I saw Mr. Allen, and he was pretty happy with that
Good.
resolution.
It's not common that we make people happy.
So any report of the officers? I don't have any. Anybody? Any old business?
I think we need to put on, based on what's happened tonight or the last week, we definitely need to put onto our agenda to get our site plan ordinance
Cleaned up.
And as you know, we need to have our checklist. I mean, that's usually I rarely open up the ordinance when we go through it. I look at.
We need to go back to having Southern Maine Regional check these things.
Are they still? I thought they were out of business.
They are not.
Well, that's something I talked to Tom about, was developing a relationship with them.
Again, we pay the money.
Oh, we do? I thought we
We used to have them all go through that, and I think they would have checked all of this stuff.
But I think we should have that as a, put it on the agenda. Or, remember we used to have the tickler at the bottom of our tickler stuff?
Yeah.
Is to reestablish our pending list.
We should start that again.
And then, we should update the master plan. Does that have to get voted on if we change the checklist?
Probably.
No, it doesn't.
Well, we
The
need
checklist.
to change site plan, period.
What we need to do, may I, we need to, as Gary said, we need to have both of them mirror each other, okay? But first, there's a series of comments that Gary has, the staff has, and I'd almost say that you might want to get some of the staff comments for changes and then merge them with yours. Then we'll revamp the site plan review ordinance. Once that's done, then we'll change the checklist.
Because we talked a lot about this last year, remember? And we were going to put in a sunset clause.
Yeah.
And also a cap on preventing people from coming in every year and building a 900-foot addition. We don't have anything to stop that.
Well, you have things, and I'll just throw out a couple. You have a charter change, and so you need to address, if this becomes a formal committee, what Gordon Littlefield was talking about was the site plan review ordinance in Sanford. That was created by myself back in 1978. And at that point, we actually had a formal committee that met, established public notices. It was very formal, and took votes, and then we gave our votes to the planning board. In this case, we have to determine whether the administration wants us to be an informal committee with recommendations and suggestions to the board, and the board has, as always, the final say. The other thing that I think we need to clarify, who's on board, who's on first base, who's going to facilitate, who's going to take care of all these things, as our town administrator said. Make sure that you have all that written documentation. Now, in your master checklist, you already have that. It's just that for some unknown reasons, not everyone documented by letters to the board. And it's just not letters to the board. It's also updated, amended, modified. As the plan changes, then the letters from the staff or department heads need to change also, so that you have a final letter that reflects the final plan with the final recommendations or suggestions.
I think the only thing that I'd add to that is it's timely. We put a time limit in there so we don't end up with
absolutely
an 8-week wait for a letter.
It should be like that for any application.
What might happen is that on the front end of it, it says 5 days. Given that I'm generally the first point man to see these applications, working on a 3-day basis, if it's the 5 days that I'm not here, then the application is already defaulted. Okay? In that case, you might have an either town planner or CEO, because we're both mentioned in the ordinance, so you need some sort of fallback position that you have a staff member that's there in person to meet and greet with the applicant and start that application process. The other thing that lacks enough detail are your waiver provisions. There are, on a case-by-case basis, you can't make the perfect site plan review ordinance apply to all. And somebody may come in with a 2,000 square foot storage shed, okay, versus a Dollar General, versus an Aroma Joe's. Each one is a different case, and so the board should have those waiver provisions that give you more latitude to waive certain things that are not applicable or that might create financial hardships on something that's not even necessary on the plan. Good illustration, you wouldn't need a full-blown traffic study for Aroma Joe's because that was already determined by the state review, the MDOT, the scoping sessions, the registry of deeds, all that with the curb cut control, the access control, that was all established when Napa was built. So why would you want to ask an applicant to do a full-blown traffic study in that case for turning movements? It's already fixed.
Or a topographical for the Dollar General
But
site or something like that.
Exactly. I would like the, yeah, if you got a flat site, you're not going to ask for,
2 contour lines.
2-foot contour lines,
Yeah.
okay? And so I think that we need to add more clarification to that, and I'm going to spiff up that section so that you have a greater latitude to make that judgment call. Still a formal process, because I created for you a waiver review sheet that's to be done on a singular basis. It's not a carte blanche anything, okay? If you got 10 waivers, you have to have 10 waiver requests. And that keeps everything neat and tidy. But the provision of how to get there in site plan review, I think, needs to be a little bit more definitive to help you in making those decisions. But those are some of the things that initially come to mind. And any other things that you feel, we could start, in January to do some redlining in areas that you see need to be spiffed up. Let's tackle them, and I'll get you a draft back quite promptly.
I think there's still a chance that this thing with the variances could be passed on to the ZBA. And if that happened, I mean, we could just take off with stuff like this because all of our time is taken up with these variances. And this is the type of thing we should be working on. We're doing the work of 2 boards.
Why would it not be passed on to them? What
I don't know.
conceivable reason is there not to pass it on to them?
Gary?
I just have to stand up and say, don't fault the selectmen for this stalling. It's me. And not enough time to sit with Natalie and Doug and what the selectmen wanted me to do. So please, this is my fault, not the Board of Selectmen.
But what conceivable reason is there to go against legal opinion and pass it on?
Oh, this is going to go to the ZBA. We just have to have some other little final language here that I haven't had the time in 55 foreclosures and everything else going on here that I
Well,
just
that's why
haven't
they
done.
built Dollar General up in that neck of the woods because of all the foreclosures. I mean, that makes the ideal place to put it.
But that's the history of this problem is that, so I mean, I wasn't trying to place the blame on anybody. I know that it,
Well, I want you to know that it's in my
over and over it stalls out because,
Yes.
it's just a strong, heritage of having that in the planning board for Waterboro.
Tim, that night it went to the Board of Selectmen, I thought it was going to be passed and we
It
would
would
be
have
done.
been.
Yeah, why?
We almost
We didn't
did.
show up because we figured.
But
anyway.
An issue was raised and they told me to look into it, so that.
But I mean, if we shed that responsibility, I mean, we could actually be a planning
Oh, you
board.
will.
And
You will.
things like site
Yeah.
plan and,
I actually think the number of these the setback reductions are gonna
Slow it
decrease. Yeah, because
Oh, yeah.
now they have to prove hardship and everything
Yeah.
else.
State criteria.
You're right,
It's
so
very
it's,
difficult.
but on the other hand, since 1977, they have accommodated the people that had substandard lots. I mean, I think the town has gone way out of their way to do the right thing, and now it's time to say, anyone who still owns a lot from 1977 that's the original owner, I'm sorry, but it's going to be a different standard.
And it's unfortunate that it has to be that standard. I personally would like not to pass 208, but I have a trouble with the fact that I don't have the right to give a variance. So the developer part of me says, for us to grant variances is great for the guy living down there because it just creates more, these people are going to build more tax base on the lake and pay more taxes to the community, and they're doing the exact same thing they were doing, but instead of doing it in a $50,000 residence, they're getting it in a $250,000 residence, and it's a win-win for everybody. In New Hampshire, I think, they do this all the time, multi-million dollars.
oh yeah, but it's a 6-month process.
Yeah.
It's a 6-month process, but they can do it.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything like that in Toronto. So
Thank God.
the only reason I want 208 to go is because we don't have legal authority to enforce 208. And it's not right, it's not fair. So I'll be glad when that happens.
It'll be
When it comes to
something.
site plan, can I just say something about site plan? I like the idea of starting a site plan committee. My only thing about the site plan committee, and I'm going to be a stickler on this, and I'd like not to have to be a stickler on it, is that when a person goes to site plan committee, he's not going to the planning board. typically, we're required to follow what the ordinance is. I find that when you go to a outside of the planning board, people, I'm trying to say this so I don't make waves, will ask for things that aren't really required in the ordinance. How does an applicant know if it's a requirement or if it's just that we'd like to see it that way?
Or
You know,
negotiation.
we get information all the time that is not relevant. People may come up and say this and say that and say that, but we don't have anything in the ordinance to enforce that. So when will an applicant be considered complete and ready to go to planning board? When he's satisfied everybody in the committee, or when he meets a certain zoning requirement?
Or
When
time-
does it go
time
from
limit.
that subcommittee to the actual planning board?
I think if we apply some sort of fairness doctrine, there has to be a timeline, and there's a time limit. Staff receive, take a look at it. If everything's in compliance with the ordinance, as it comes to the negotiation points, the board has said to me on more than one occasion, no, you can't negotiate architectural standards. So I've stepped back from that, and that's why I gave you the design guidelines. Where they go, they go.
Well, I don't think we said you can't negotiate architectural standards. I think we might have said you're out of your bloody mind if you want to.
Yeah, well, yes.
It's a phraseology there, but, nobody in this town wants architectural standards.
I don't think we should give up.
Well, the reason
There's
that
a few that want them.
the reason that I did suggest that is because we went through several experiences of design
Done
build
it before, but
structures,
maybe we can do it again. I don't know.
and also
We're gonna
on
keep trying.
something to keep in mind. If it's done in a gentlemanly way, there's nothing illegal about it. Might be with if you wanted to try to do it, okay, because you've got a really prescribed responsibility. For myself, I can sit down, as I've done before.
Like with the Roman Joes.
Particularly landscaping, okay? You have zero landscaping provisions. I go and I, in a gentlemanly way, negotiate landscape. The last one...
Did they change that?
Yes,
On
the
plan?
last one,
didn't
if
even
I may,
look very carefully.
Frank suggested, well, let's get Judy involved in this too,
Yeah,
not just
okay.
you, Ursha. Judy's a master gardener.
But
So-
what does North Berwick have for architectural standards?
Yeah.
You want to get out and see a difference in
Well,
Dollar Generals?
yeah.
Go down and look and see what they're
Well,
getting down
that's
there.
why I asked the board to go take a look at it,
I
so
saw
that
it.
it
Doesn't
might
thrill
get
me.
us interested in looking at design guidelines versus
But this
design
is where,
standards.
This is where I think things go awry, because you have the ordinance. All the applicant is required to do is what's in the ordinance.
Is to comply with the ordinance,
And you
exactly.
can ask. You can ask for other things, and you can negotiate other
But-
things. But the applicant always has to know that he has the right to say, no, I don't want to do that, and I want to go in front of the board.
Exactly.
And I don't want to see an applicant being refused to go to the board because they say the plan is incomplete. You haven't fulfilled what is required from these department heads.
Well-
So how do you determine
Let me-
when a
let me
plan
respond.
goes to the board?
Yeah.
Let me
That's my
respond.
big stickler.
Okay.
If they don't want to comply with
Well,
what
let me
this
respond
other
to
board
that.
says, do they never come to the planning board?
That's where the timeline comes in.
Timeline will predetermine that. However, so that you don't get a premature application, there needs to be one easy, quick fix. Right now, if Gary's a developer, he can walk into Tammy's office, pick up an appointment, and pay $50 and get scheduled, whether it's complete or not complete. Something needs to be done to allow staff to get as complete an application as possible. The last mandate that I heard from the planning board is don't send us an application unless it's complete.
I thought we had that pretty well nailed down.
Yeah, you nailed me down and you said, Ursha, make sure it's complete before you get it to us, okay? So that's what I'm trying to do, is to make sure it's complete. As part of that new process, the charter has changed. You have a Department of Public Works. And I, for one, have been saying repeatedly, have a paper trail, have a paper trail. I think we're getting there. I think that this application is showing to us the importance of these letters from department heads. Whether you agree or don't agree, at least you have, and you have to define whether these are recommendations or suggestions, okay? The board has the final say.
Requirements.
Pardon me?
For requirements.
Or requirements.
That's a big
So,
difference.
Exactly.
so say we had an applicant. An applicant comes in and he's going, not to the planning board, but he's going to this new committee. And when the applicant gets to this new committee, it gets brought up that, okay, we have a turning radius issue, we have this, we have that. And the town runs their own program on it, and the applicant runs his own program on it. And the town's program says, no, it doesn't meet it, and the applicant does. Can that applicant at that point still come in front of the board and let the board decide?
Sure.
Or does that applicant say, no, the plan is not complete because we're not in agreement on the turning radius? That's what I have a concern about. I have a concern that the applicant should always be aware that he has the right to come and get a judgment. Because, I mean, there's sometimes that people are asking for things that just aren't required in the ordinance. And we shouldn't be
Or
denying
there is
a
no
person that's not
definition.
required in the ordinance.
And I think we should create a system whereby even if site plan review committee staff, et cetera, think that it's inadequate or not done properly, they should always be able to come to the board,
Yes.
rendered incomplete. And taking that one step further, it's up to the town staff to say whether it's a recommendation or a requirement in their minds. If it's a requirement, they need to quote an FPA or whatever else the situation is, so that you folks can understand where they're coming from. If it's just a recommendation, it should be stated as that.
Exactly. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, what the town administrator says is exactly what I'm looking for. It's just, that's exactly what I want to see. We are definitely
He's
not,
right there. He hit the nail.
the experts on it. One of the things that was mentioned tonight was like the peer review is already done before it comes to us. That whether, I mean, that's probably a different discussion, but those things, when they come to us, we know right away that, how we stand, how the town stands, because I think that's my issue that we've had with the last two applications, that in the absence of information, we have to make a decision. So if it comes to us and it says, one of the emails that we saw in the last 48 hours there was wording like, I'd like to see, which is easy for me to make that's a suggestion, that's not a requirement. So that's exactly what I'm looking for out of this committee is, Maine state statute requires a sprinkler in this size building. It's not proposed by the applicant. It would get denied by the state when it goes up to them. That's the type of thing we want to see.
Yeah. And like Frank's been saying all along is, another thing with this committee that we've been talking about is we would get a periodic report of what they're dealing with. So, I mean, we'd be kept up to date on what's going on. We're not completely in the
Every
dark.
meeting.
But we have a steady stream of applicants that come in here and say, hey, I met with public work director, I met with fire, and
That's going to
and
change.
you go, really? We got nothing.
That's going to change.
We just did that site walk the other day, and
Carpenters.
the engineer was saying that they already had met with people, and we were like, we're doing the site walk for the first time.
I know.
And we beat this.
Don't get us going.
So
Tom, you want to wrap it up?
No, I want to interrupt just a second before I forget it and lose track of it. One of the things John Gale brought up tonight just absolutely blows my mind. He says at the public meeting, people will be up in arms because we're not meeting the 2020 visionary thing. I brought that plan to North Waterboro, I got laughed out of town. Nobody knows anything about that. I mean, they've done a nice job.
We've
It's a
had
nice.
public hearings. And
They've had public
okay.
hearing. How many people did you have?
Yeah, right.
But
That's
he's
what I
also
said.
talking about the old plan, which is, 11 years old?
I mean, that corner has
Once
changed
again,
drastically up there.
We have not adopted a new 2020 comprehensive
No.
plan yet, so it's not in effect.
Just so everyone.
We're gonna have a public hearing, they'll be able to come and say what they wanna say.
Just so everybody can respond properly and legally about the comprehensive plan. All the work that the 2020 committee has done is not part of any plan. Okay, it's part of a conceptual plan. The plan you have in existence is the one you created 11 years ago.
Right.
Because that's the one that was
And
adopted.
that's what we need to follow till
We have to
something
follow
done.
that one. So John and the selectmen and the whole public have to follow what was done 11 years ago. Okay, because that's the plan in existence.
And I do wanna mention that, we went to an economic development committee, economic summit, which I thought was fantastic back about a month ago, 3 weeks ago, on Saturday. There had to be at least 60 people in that place, business people. And I struggle with some of what we're having a discussion on tonight, because at that meeting, I heard 60 people talk about economic growth, new jobs in Waterboro, growing Waterboro, getting good businesses, and different thoughts. And I didn't really hear anybody talk about not having business growth in Waterboro. And
Well, they were
now,
business
because of
people.
this whole fiasco in town here, we're gonna adopt a lot of new ordinances and a lot of new guidelines, which is actually, in a sense, going the opposite way, where we're putting more restrictions on how the process works. So I want to try to keep, I'd like to see us keep in mind what the end goal is. And the end goal that was discussed, and I take that as kind of like a mandate from the town, because there was a lot of people at that meeting, and I think it made a lot of sense, and there was a lot of good, I thought it was a great meeting. And I didn't hear anybody talk about not having economic growth in Waterboro. So when we put all these new rules and these new ordinances and all this stuff we're putting in, we gotta keep in mind that we don't wanna do it to the point where we're just driving business out of town.
If we speed
have,
it up.
I think, how many foreclosures did you say there was, 57?
It went from 70 down to 55. I'm working to get the list done.
55 foreclosures in Waterboro.
In multiple years, that's not just.
Okay, I thought it was just 1 year.
No.
But that's a lot. It's a lot of people that
Well,
maybe if there was a few other smaller businesses in town, they would be able to get a night job or something and not have to go through foreclosure. So I sympathize with the taxpayer who is paying, trying to survive in Waterboro. All these ordinances, all these regulations, everything that we do here is for the taxpayer, not for town government or anything else. It's for the taxpayer. And so we want to keep business growth in mind and support our local businesses.
That's why if we have tight timelines, this could actually speed it up,
Yes.
instead of dragging it out.
They have a new project going in Benefit, 200 units or something, 200 in the old mill building.
Oh, yeah.
And they're talking about, they're gonna have this thing all approved by January.
They're having it, they're saying it's gonna be
Open
open
in
in
2 years.
15, yeah, 15 it'll start being open.
And it has not gone through the review process all that long. I mean, it's been like 3 months, 4 months since they started that. Because he was actually at the Economic Development Summit, and he said, you know, they're ramming that thing right through. So if they can pass a project with hotels, swimming pool on the roof, 200 units, shops, retail, this and that, $50 million project, and they can put it through their review process in 3 months, we should be able to do the same thing in Waterboro. We can't consider ourselves business friendly.
Anything else, Tom?
Just a closing note. What I'm hearing the board say, and it's important because in the reconstruct of the site plan review, that sooner is better than later. We'll create, but I'd like to suggest, and just see if I can get some consensus with the board, is that after staff have reviewed it, whether they agree or disagree, and whether there's still some pieces missing, we'll create, or I'll end up probably being the person who will create a punch list, okay, of the things that are in order and the things that aren't in order. So the board can still receive it, but you'll have everything that's deficient. If there's not a letter from the Department of Public Works, it'll say it. If there's not a letter from someone else, you'll see it. All letters that have been submitted, you'll see it. And so although the plan, and this goes a little bit against the grain of how we were doing it in the past, even if it's slightly deficient, at least you'll have what those deficiencies are, and we'll be able to troubleshoot it and expedite it, hopefully.
I think what the town administrator proposed, I like that, with suggestions and requirements. I mean, I think it's important that we get, the, you know, somebody in the town says, I don't like the plan. I mean, even though there's no reason for it, I'd like to know why, because, so we don't get ambushed at a meeting when, you know, somebody stands up and says, you know, I talked to you about it, you know, this plan that isn't going to work because of this, this, and this. At least we would have known about it early on, and we could have addressed it, you know, in an application that was before us a month ago. Something was brought up, and we did actually change the application, but it would have been nice to know that before we do it at a meeting. So, I mean, I think it's important we see the negative, too, that, you know, it's not just whitewashed when it comes to us.
I guess I want to see what the applicant has gone through to get here.
Yeah.
I want to know what the applicant has gone through to get here. To see if the applicant has really tried to meet the requirements and do something business friendly for the community, or if he's just fucked that every part of the way. Not that it makes a difference on how I'm going to rule, but it does make a difference on how we should get here, I guess. You
And
know, I mean,
that could be in the minutes,
if you're
too.
bucking the ordinance, that's one thing, but if you're bucking just suggestions, that's a different thing. So I like the way Gary said it as well. I thought he had hit it right.
It should be real easy
Yeah, right
and
now.
simple. The guy to walk in and say, this is what I
Yeah,
want to do.
you'd like to
This
think
is
so.
the Requirements, and you just then tell, yeah, you do this.
No,
Simple.
since we have very few requirements, really, it
Yeah,
should be
yeah.
very easy. We don't have any architectural standards, we don't have a lot of things in this town. This is why Dollar General's here. They didn't come here because we have a lot of requirements, they came here because we don't have any requirements.
And the land's relatively cheap.
Hence, if we make too many requirements, nobody's coming here. Because
And that
we
would make some
cannot
people
offer-
very
We
happy.
cannot offer to some of these businesses what other larger towns can offer. And that's the reality of where we are. I mean, I'm not saying we take all the leftovers, but if you go to City of Benefit, at least you have more population that'll support a business. You know, if you're in certain businesses in Waterboro, you have a real small population. So these guys have to think if they want to be here or not. And if you make it too hard, maybe they're not going to come to Waterboro. Maybe they're going to go to Alfred or Lyman that also has the same kind of regulations as us, but it's not quite as stringent. So we got to balance that whole thing with there.
Could I change the subject just for a minute?
Sure.
Bridget, did you do the article on Victor in the Reporter?
No, Sue Fisher did.
She did? That was the best piece I've seen in the Reporter. That was
Very
excellent.
good, very good.
Really terrific.
What a great business
Oh,
to spotlight
he
like that.
does incredible stuff.
Yeah, it's amazing. But anyway,
World class.
Oh, yeah.
sorry, I thought it was you.
Yeah. I wish I could claim it.
Keep working on it.
It
Sounds
goes back
quiet, we have a
too,
motion to adjourn.
which is
That's good.
amazing.
I'll second that.
There we go.
Columbo has something more.
Hey, only 1 minute.
One more thing.
Only 1 minute. I got it
It's
just in
usually
time.
Andy.
Just in time. Just a 1 minute dovetail to what Andy was saying about the business summit. I want to thank the board members that were able to attend. For the benefit of those that weren't able to attend, there'll be a synopsis of that meeting that will be forthcoming within the next couple weeks.
Wasn't recorded?
Pardon me?
It wasn't recorded?
It was recorded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And all the highlights of what every person said were documented.
Cool.
So that recording of all the key points is going to be put into a report. That report will become part of the substance of the economic development chapter of the proposed master plan. But I'll make sure all the board members get a copy of that just as soon as it's been issued. First, it will be circulated to the EDC, the Economic Development Committee, but you will get a copy of that, everyone.
Yeah, it was a great meeting.
It was a good meeting.
So we have a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor? We're adjourned.